Hello, I would like to start with the third in a series of videos about supply and demand analysis. And basically we're starting at the point where we have we've discussed demand, we've discussed supply, we've put them together, we've talked about equilibrium, and basically now we need to get used to some graphical analysis of the entire market. So to begin with, here is an example of an increase in demand for Hawaiian vacations. So what I've got is a supply and demand curve. I've got my equilibrium price P1, my equilibrium quantity Q1. And what I want to do is increase the demand for Hawaiian vacations. So what would that look like on a graph? Hopefully you realize that you'd have to draw a whole new demand curve shifted to the right. So let me scroll down to that. Here's my whole new demand curve shifted to the right. That means there's been an increase in demand for Hawaiian vacations. Now this one, the old demand curve, you kind of have to ignore that. It's pretty much gone. Just don't even be bothered or look at it. Now we've got the new demand curve and the original supply curve intersecting at this point. Go straight across, label that your second price, P2, and your second quantity straight down to the quantity axis. Now typically I would ask students in class to give me 3 causes for an increase in demand for Hawaiian vacations. Because you know you're going to be given a lot of questions where events will be described, and that's the whole idea, is you have to figure out, okay, well, whatever event that's being described, does it shift demand or does it shift supply? So the first thing I can tell you is that, remember, there are 6 shifters for demand. That could be income, price of complements, price of substitutes, buyer's tastes and preferences, buyer's expectations, and number of buyers. So let me give 3 different causes for an increase in demand for Hawaiian vacations. First one, income. People's income rises. Yep, that'll increase the demand for Hawaiian vacations. But wait, there's also something else you have to add when you use income. And that is, you must also assume that Hawaiian vacations are normal goods. Because when income increases and it increases the demand for a product, then it means that that product, in this case, Hawaiian vacations, must be a normal good. Okay, second one, how about price of complements? Price of complements. Well, what's a complement to a Hawaiian vacation? I'll use airfare to Hawaii. So let's say we want to increase the demand for Hawaiian vacations. What would have to happen to the price of airfare to Hawaii? Yes, of course, it would have to fall. So a decrease in the price of airfare to Hawaii. That would cause an increase in demand for Hawaiian vacations. And a third one, let's see, I've done price of complements, I've done income. How about price of substitutes? If we assume that the Caribbean vacations are a substitute for Hawaiian vacations, then the way we could increase the demand for Hawaiian vacations is if, for example, the price of Caribbean vacations rose. If the price of Caribbean vacations rose, the quantity demanded of Caribbean vacations would decrease, and we would increase our demand for the substitute Hawaiian vacations. Now let me scroll down and also bring out a couple other points. I know I've got my famous arrows here. Sorry, these arrows, horizontal arrows, are showing that there's been an increase in demand. The whole demand curve is shifted to the right. This is showing that the price rose and that the quantity increased. So we could say when there is an increase in demand, equilibrium price and quantity will rise. But I wanted you to also notice that nothing happens with supply. Just because demand increases, nothing happens with the supply curve. We don't have a new supply curve. But what does happen that relates to supply is we move from this point on the supply curve up the supply curve to a new higher quantity supplied. Remember, when you move on the same the curve or along the same curve, that's quantity. So in this case, it's quantity supplied. So let me say that one more time. An increase in demand causes the equilibrium price and quantities sold of a product to rise. It also causes, because the price rises, it also causes an increase in quantity supplied as we move up the curve. Now, I probably have lost some of you, and hopefully you'll become more comfortable with this in just a few moments. So let me scroll down to another graph, and we'll try one more. SUVs. Okay, well, what we're going to depict here is a decrease in demand for SUVs. So you've got the supply curve and the demand curve. They determine an equilibrium price of P1, Q1. I'm going to assume that there have been some causes that have decreased the demand for SUVs. So I'm going to ask you to draw a new demand curve shifted to the left. Then find where that new demand curve intersects the supply curve. Go straight over to the price axis, label it P2, and straight down to the quantity axis and label it Q2. And hopefully your graph is going to look something like mine. Now, there's my new decreased demand curve shifted to the left. And here's where they intersect. My second price and my second quantity. Okay, we might as well get it over with. Let me go into my graph with all the arrows. Here's my arrow indicating the demand is shifted left, which is a decrease. The price has fallen, and the equilibrium quantity has fallen. Now, demand has decreased. So let me go over the complete analysis of this. When demand decreases, equilibrium price falls, equilibrium quantity sold will fall, and because price falls, we move along or down the supply curve to a new lower quantity supplied. Let me say that again. Okay, I'll try. When demand decreases, it causes equilibrium price to fall and equilibrium quantity sold to fall. Since price falls, we move along the supply curve downward to a new lower quantity supplied. Okay, let me see. Let's do another one with supply. Okay, I've depicted here an increase in supply of laptop computers. So we've got the original demand curve, the original supply curve. Here's the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. And what I'm asking again here is for an increase in supply. So an increase is always to the right, whether it's demand or supply. You're going to draw a whole new supply curve shifted to the right. Then what you need to do is kind of ignore the old one. Find where that new one intersects the demand curve. Go straight down. That's going to be Q2. Go straight over, and that will be P2. So let me show a slide with that information. Now, here's my new supply curve. Shifted over to the right. Price has fallen. You'll notice that quantity has gone up. So the analysis would be, first of all, when supply increases, it causes equilibrium price to fall and equilibrium quantity to rise. Because price is falling, we move along the demand curve from a higher down to a lower price and a higher quantity demanded. So as price falls, quantity demanded rises. So, three causes of an increase in supply of laptop computers. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking about things that shift demand. There's more demand for it. No. If there's more demand for a product, that raises the demand and increases quantity supplied. Here, we're increasing supply. So how do you increase supply? Or what causes supply to increase? Another way to look at that is what causes sellers to be more willing to supply? So that has to do with shifters. And I believe I gave you 4 shifters for supply: cost of doing business, sellers' expectations, technology, and number of sellers. So what could have caused this to happen? How about the cost for circuit boards used in laptop computers falls? The cost for circuit boards falls. How about, there's an improvement in technology that lowers the cost of doing business. An improvement in technology. You know, whenever you hear that word technology, think to yourself, we're able to get more output from our inputs, and it lowers cost. So that makes sellers more willing to supply. Third cause, how about sellers have positive expectations? They're seeing that households, the unemployment rate's coming down, more people are working, households are spending is increasing, so they're anticipating good future sales. Or you could just say the fourth one, if we wanted to add that one in there, is more firms start producing laptop computers. And that always happens, for example, in competitive markets. Maybe a product like a laptop will be initially produced by one manufacturer. I don't know who the first one that brought laptops out. I can't remember. But anyway, one producer will start with them. The price will be high. And then as more and more are produced, technology will improve. Cost of doing business will come down. And eventually more producers will be entering the market. All of those things will increase supply and lower the price. Okay, the fourth example here would be a decrease in supply of leather jackets. Here's my initial supply and demand curve. Together they determine equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. What you're being asked to do here is decrease supply. So a decrease, again, whether it's supply or demand, always means you're drawing a new curve to the left of the old curve. So here's my original supply curve, and here's my new supply curve to the left. So second thing to do is find where the new supply curve, this one, intersects with the original demand curve, and then go straight down, label your second quantity, go straight across, and label your second price. Now you really can ignore this original one, but we're showing that, okay, it was here, now here's our new decreased supply. So as far as the graphical analysis, here's my new supply curve. You can see that equilibrium price rises, equilibrium quantity falls. So when supply decreases, well, it shifts to the left. It causes equilibrium price to rise, but equilibrium quantity will fall. And since price is rising, we move up the demand curve to a new lower quantity demanded. So 3 causes of a decrease in supply of leather jackets. Well, again, think about cost of doing business. Now, invariably when I do this example in class, somebody says mad cow disease. And it's nothing to laugh at, but because people do die from this terrible disease. But how in the world does mad cow disease, how is that a shifter that will decrease the supply of leather jackets? Well, you know, these cows that end up with this disease, they are destroyed. None of the cow is used. So that could actually mean, well, there would be less leather available on the market. And if there's less leather for the manufacturers to make these jackets, then the cost of that leather is going to rise. So you could say higher cost of leather. Another answer that's often given is, it's summer and people don't want leather jackets. No. That's not a right answer, because that shifts demand. That's number of buyers, or buyers' tastes and preferences. We're talking about what decreases supply. So we got rising cost of leather so far. We can think of any other cost of doing business that could rise. It could be the wages to the workers. It could be the cost of transportation, like rising prices of oil means transportation's more costly. Or maybe sellers are anticipating that people will become more conscious about wearing dead animal skins. And they'll say, they'll anticipate that there's going to be less demand for their products in the future. So they have negative expectations for future sales, and that will decrease the supply. Okay, I hope those are helpful to you. And again, supply and demand, it can seem very confusing at first and seem pretty challenging, but it just takes a little practice, and I'm sure you'll be successful with it.